Jemima was saying that it can be extremely difficult for everyone, but especially women, as it affects them more, to bring a tribunal against their employer. Well, a woman from Northampton has finally won a 2-year battle against her former boss, who vandalised her car with an offensive message and then doused it in red paint. Suzanne Brogan first thought it was local kids who damaged her car, but after trawling through CCTV, she worked out it was her ex-boss. It happened after Suzanne took Christopher Stanton to an employment tribunal claiming unfair dismissal. She was rewarded £33,500 in damages in June 2014. She's angry that she had to wait more than 2 years for his conviction, though, despite CCTV evidence. I can talk to Suzanne now. Good morning.
Good morning.
Why did you take your boss to tribunal, first of all?
I was dismissed for gross misconduct, and I felt that was very unfair. I appealed against the dismissal, but the conversations between us broke down, so I had no alternative but to take the case to the tribunal.
And what happened with the tribunal?
We actually settled out of court a substantial sum, and I thought that was it. I thought everything was done and dusted.
Okay, and then tell me how we get into this situation then with regards to the car.
About 6 months after the tribunal, I woke up on the 29th of December to have an obscene word painted down the side of my car.
And did you have any reason to think it might be linked back to your former boss?
There was lots of things going on around the same time that I suspected it would be linked to the company, not necessarily to the person.
Right.
But I had CCTV on my property, viewed the CCTV footage and very quickly recognised my former employer.
Did he disguise himself?
Yes, he did, yes. He knew I had CCTV cameras and he was well disguised.
So how did you recognise him?
I recognised him from his walk, and I had a civil case at the same time. I managed to secure an ex parte injunction, and I offered to pay for gait analysis that would compare my CCTV with any CCTV he provided, but unfortunately he didn't feel the necessity or the ability to provide that comparison.
He's now been convicted, hasn't he?
He has, yeah. The police charged him. The CPS decided to drop the charges, and I had to appeal twice against their decision. I actually met with CPS in London, and we went through what's called a pre-trial witness interview, which was basically a 2-hour recorded meeting, and they concluded that actually there was enough evidence to go ahead, and the trial took place in January of this year.
And I know you've not really spoken about this since because, well, I imagine, you tell me why, it's been an incredibly difficult scenario.
It's been incredibly difficult, obviously, having to deal with everything else that's been going on around the scenes. It wasn't just cars being painted. But then 28 days after his conviction, he actually appealed against the conviction to add to the stress. And he only dropped that appeal 3 days before we were due to appear in court for the appeal. So I actually haven't been able to talk about it until now.
And what do you want to say about this experience?
I think the CPS really do need to sort their systems out. I think things could be done a lot quicker and a lot better. Not only from a victim's point of view, but from a defendant's point of view. If you're a defendant and you're not guilty, the time it takes to get a case to court is just too long. To get an appeal processed and heard just takes too long. If they actually sat down with the victim who's appealing, they can make a decision very, very quickly. Instead, they troll through papers and just take too long. Everything takes too long.
And have you now got a restraining order?
I have. The court has ordered Mr. Stanton not to have any communication with me himself or anybody on his behalf, and that came into play on the 13th of January.
Are you confident that he will stay away, that this is the end?
I hope so. I think it'd be very, very foolish to do anything now. Not only is it local people who are aware of this, obviously the story's broken and gone a lot further, so I think an awful lot of people will be aware or certainly suspect if anything happens to me or any of my property, where to look.
And in terms of, just to go back for a moment, when he did do this, when he put this word on the side of your car, and when you were basically under attack, I mean, how did you feel?
When I woke up and saw this painted down my car, I was actually angry. I was angry, and when I saw the CCTV, I was absolutely amazed by his arrogance. His vehicle was caught on the police ANPR cameras 13 minutes before the criminal damage was committed on each occasion, and his vehicle was caught less than a mile away from my home. He turned that into a no-comment interview when he was questioned by the police. So I was angry at his arrogance, and I was angry that, as I say, it just took so long. But because of other incidents that were happening around the same time, I was actually scared. Very scared. My life has changed beyond recognition, and people think, you wake up with some obscenity on your car, and that's a ridiculous thing to say. But I've had to strengthen the security at my home. I have to be very careful when I'm out and about on my own. And yeah, it's not an understatement to say that my life has changed.
Are you working again?
I am. I was working really quickly after my dismissal.
Okay.
So any suggestion from him that I'm bitter about being sacked is a nonsense. I was working within 3 weeks, and I'm very happy where I'm working.
Suzanne, thank you very much for talking to me this morning. It's good to talk to you. Suzanne Brogan there, who had to take matters into her own hands there. A spokesperson for the CPS, for the Crown Prosecution Service, said this case was charged by the police in October 2015 and referred to the CPS. Initially, we concluded there was insufficient evidence to continue with the case, but following a further appeal and additional interview with the victim, 2 charges of criminal damage were reinstated on June 2016. The case came to court in January 2017, and Christopher Stanton was convicted of 2 counts of criminal damage. Well, elsewhere in court, the online taxi hailing firm